heat, brother. I am the heat, brother.
Here we go.
I am the heat, brother.
How's it going, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. As of recording this, I just finished watching UFC 276. This spectacular event was held in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Tonight was a completely stacked card, and we're going to talk about the different fights in a little bit of detail. And during his post-fight interview, Israel Adesanya called out Alex Pereira, who performed very well tonight and we'll get into in a little bit. Back when the two were kickboxers, Alex bested Israel, and Israel wants to get back at him, especially now that the two are members of the most elite fighting organization in the world. It's only fitting that they settle their differences in the octagon. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment as to who you think had the best fight tonight. Now let's go ahead and get into it. Bantamweight prospects Sean O and Pedro Munoz each relied heavily on calf kicks during the first minute of round 1. Unfortunately, O'Malley accidentally poked Munoz in the eye, and it led to a no contest. We're hoping to see these two matched up again in the very near future. Robbie Lawler and Bryan Barberena are two welterweights whose preferred methods of combat are strikes. Both men hold skills in other areas, but punching is what really gets them excited. In round 1, Lawler landed an uppercut that stunned Barberena. He seemed to be in control of the fight and dictating the pace of action. However, that all changed in round 2 when Barberena landed an elbow that wobbled Lawler. Sensing momentum was on his side, Barberena seized the moment. He hit Lawler with a barrage of punches that knocked him senseless. This forced the referee to stop the fight. It just goes to show that in combat sports, one can never become complacent. The entire narrative of the fight can change in an instant. Strickland vs. Pereira was definitely a great fight. Middleweight combatant Sean Strickland was ranked in the top 5 fighters of his division in the UFC prior to tonight. There were other top 5 fighters that could have fought Alex Pereira but had hesitation doing so. Compared to Strickland, Pereira is relatively new to the organization. However, his skill as a fighter is known throughout the world of combatant sports due to his elite career as a kickboxer. In the first round of the fight, Pereira showed the world why he's regarded as such a dangerous man. He landed a left hook squarely on his opponent's jaw, and that hurt Strickland immediately. He followed up this initial blow with an overhand right that knocked Strickland out for good. Rarely has a fighter been able to make the leap from unranked to title contender in one fight, but tonight's victory was so impressive that Alex Pereira is almost guaranteed to be Israel Adesanya's next opponent for the middleweight championship of the world. Volkanovski vs. Holloway was another amazing fight tonight. As I mentioned, completely stacked card. The reigning featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski, stated that his goal was to send the challenger, Max Holloway, a message during the fight. A lot of pundits thought Holloway would have been declared the winner during the rematch. Instead, Volkanovski retained the belt. With this in mind, the champion wanted to showcase that their last 2 fights were not a fluke, and he is still the better fighter. Volkanovski's elite speed was on display for the entirety of the fight. At one point during round 1, he could be heard taunting Holloway, saying, "I'm too fast for you." His left jab landed with increasing frequency from round 1 to round 2. Late in round 2, an elbow from Volkanovski opened a nasty cut over Holloway's left eye. Holloway showed amazing resolve, continuing to apply forward pressure in rounds 3 and 4. All of this in spite of the fact that the cut over his eye was only continuing to get worse. By round 5, it was completely clear that Volkanovski was ahead on the scorecards. The speed and timing he had was even better than his last time in the octagon. In the last minute of the round, he began to pick up the pace, but by that point the outcome was a foregone conclusion. Volk was awarded a unanimous decision and ultimately retained his title. Finally getting to the big fight of the night, Adesanya vs. Cannonier. In round 1, Israel Adesanya and Jared Cannonier each employed calf kicks and outside kicks to land scoring blows. Cannonier tried but failed to close the gap between the two of them. Adesanya's 6'4" frame seemed to be a puzzle that Cannonier could not solve. Round 2 was largely uneventful as a head kick landed by Adesanya in the first minute of the round was the only significant moment of the period. By round 3, Cannonier picked up the pace and attempted 2 takedowns, neither of which were successful. However, the bulk that he possessed seemed to make an impression on Adesanya before he was ultimately able to break free. In round 4, Cannonier attempted to land body shots, which is a strategy he should have employed earlier in the fight. By round 5, Adesanya made a resounding statement by landing a high head kick that landed on Cannonier's crown with a thud. Ultimately, Adesanya's superior speed and timing were far too much for Cannonier to handle. He's definitely an elite middleweight, but Adesanya is the undisputed king of the division. Perhaps his former foe, new rival Alex Pereira, can pose a challenge for the last stylebender. But as of now, there's no middleweight who has proven they can match his set in the octagon. At the end of the day, UFC 276 was just as exciting as I thought it was going to be. I'm ecstatic at the thought of Alex Pereira becoming Israel Adesanya's next opponent. Adesanya seems to be completely invincible, but this would definitely be a completely interesting fight. Tell us in the comments who you want to see him fight next. Also, which fight was your favorite? As always, thank you very much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, we will see you in the next video.